All right, so I want to go over modeling hexagon patterns real quick. And this is really a runaway topic. It's not really beginner friendly necessarily. I'm going to explain why as we go through this. But I want to get started. So I'm going to delete the cube and we're going to hit Shift A, create a circle. We're going to make it six-sided. We're going to use a fill of an Ngon, fill the key view from the top. And we can go ahead and turn wireframes on here. Shift D, X, or bring it out to the side. Now, if it seems like I'm going kind of fast, it's because I am. We got a lot of stuff we want to go through. A lot of tutorials, what they're going to do is they're going to show you how to set up the hexagon pattern very simply, but they don't go in depth with it. And I want to go a little bit more in depth. All right. So, first things first, a lot of times you'll see the tutorials out there, they're using the array modifier. There's nothing wrong with this setup, it works just fine. But instead of using relative, use constant, click and drag, hold shift at the same time, line these up as close as you can. Okay. Now, you add a second array. Instead of using relative, we use constant again, go up, drag it over, do this now. Okay. And you want to get these pretty precise, generally speaking. I got quite a bit of a gap in here. It's not going to matter for our video anyways. But the main thing is that this is how you set up the pattern. There is a gap. So to get rid of that gap, you could merge with each array or you can add a weld modifier and crank up the value a little. Closer they are, the less this value doesn't have to be as big. So if you're ever doing like holding edges with subdivision and whatnot, you can have smaller edges. Nicer that way. Not very precise, but it does work. So wanted to go through that real quick. And so this is the pattern, or this is how you generate this pattern anyway. You can change the counts here now. Pull it out. That is it. So this works really well for certain things, perhaps, right? It works good for like you're working on vehicles, using array modifiers. Like you can lay out all kinds of patterns, not just hexagons, right? Now the trick is that this is about where tutorials generally stop. They just how you make a hexagon. What do you do with this and how do you actually work it? That's the real question. Why I wanted to go a little bit more in depth with it because a lot of them they might into here or they might say like inset, X, delete fake, solidify, modify. There's going to be all kinds of scenarios where this solidify it, inset with high. And then if you wanted to do something like a simple deform, they were twisting it. Like this is okay, but it might not be enough resolution and it starts creating like these weird kind of faces when it's subdivided. Might be a little bit flat in some areas. You might want it more curvy. Anyways, so here's what we do. Go back into edit mode. You can turn all of these off in edit. Click and drag down. Really? And this is the modifier list add-on, by the way. It's an extensions. But thing here is I want you to kind of remember this. You got all these different edges here. You have a center one here at the bottom, so we can symmetrize left to right, but we don't have one going up and down. If we want one in the middle here, right? How do we make this work out? Well, 3. I'm just going to say 3. So Control R, loop cut, mouse wheel up. We get 3, left click, and then right. All that, right? Oops, not 2. Okay, so this is good. Now it's going to bend a little bit better. It's flat everywhere. Okay. We don't need that right now. We also run into another issue. How do we unwrap something like this, right? Like this is pretty challenging if you don't know how to do it. Usually there'd be a seam on like the back side, and then these would all taper inwards on the UV map. Unfortunately, Blender has issues a lot of times with all kinds of different features, little nuanced things like this, perhaps. And it's a little bit challenging to do that here in Blender. So a lot of times it's actually better to taper everything when you're creating something like. In that case, let's kind of move forward though, real quick. I'm going to grab this intersection by alt clicking that edge, Control F, and we're going to do a grid fill. You should see a grid fill like this. Okay. So let's say we didn't start here though. Let's say we were back at an Ingon. Solve those first. Say we had an Ingon in here. We want to do things like this manually. Just remember, like two verts, hit J. These might not exist right away. So you would add a loop cut. Boom. Okay. Then you can add loop cuts after. You do your 3 here, your 3 here. You do your 1 here, 1 here. Okay. That's how we get back to that. Now, so if we're going to UV map this, let's say we extrude down, that probably won't work out too well. Could extrude down and then scale it, and that would work out better. So we can UV map from the top using project view later on. We'll be able to, still have some stretching to it perhaps, but it'll still have some texture on it that's not super stretched as if it was like this, which is almost impossible to unwrap in this current version of Blender at least. It's pretty rough. Like I say, it's impossible, but your solidify goes crazy at it. Right? So, a lot of guys might teach how to do this and then they just don't take it any further. I have backface culling on, by the way, just so you know what's going on there. But this is good. So if we ever needed to shift D and hit Y, duplicate, right click, convert to a mesh, we could do something like go into the top view now, pressing U, project from view, we can unwrap it. So trick number 1, tapers on everything. Next issue is that we need this whole outer edge. We can alt click it, press E and Z, we can bring it down. Okay. In our case here, when we do that, we got a bunch of stuff going on back here. Like if we can press F, we can fill it with an Ingon. If it's flat, this would probably work out fine. But if we need a grid in here, it gets a little bit confusing to make it this way, right? This is where everything falls apart because you learn off one tutorial that's real simple and it's like, oh, we got this. Is there a way to create a grid back there after extruding? Yes. Is it a pain? Absolutely. Sometimes you don't want to do it that way. So you might actually extrude this one and take it down. Okay. And this one you can grid fill, no problem. So let's make sure we got the right alignment. I want to make sure the alignment's similar to the other one. Cool. All right. So we got that going now. But when we do this and we weld these or merge them all together, we have interior faces, bunches of it. So you have to make sure that you can merge all these shapes together. When we duplicate this out, and we convert it to a mesh, collapse all those modifiers. We want to make sure that we can go into edit mode, press A twice, unselect everything, then do select all by trait. You might have to be in face select for this. Okay. Select all by trait and do interior faces. If you can get a hold of all these, you can just press X and delete faces. So this will be good to go now. Okay. This will come up again later on because you might be working on something like this and, oh, a bit of an issue back here, perhaps. Here's another thing you run into. This could create bad subdivision. So if you're trying to render and you, for whatever reason, see like the inside of a tube or something, might be a problem. Those bottom faces, select them, go into sculpt mode, set a face set from edit mode selection, turn on face set, or this is auto masking, turn on mask by face set and mask face set boundary. We can use the mesh filter and we can set it to relax. Okay. Now we can click and drag. You see, we can actually use a relax tool in Blender, surprisingly. But it takes some setup like that. Don't overdo it, but you get the idea. It looks better than it did. Cool. All right. So let's go ahead and take this now. Let's simple deform it. Do a bin. And I'm going to use this modifier list add-on to create an empty, which sets it up right here. It's already referencing the empty, but it's right here. At RX and 0. Blender 5 will have the GeoNode modifiers that are different. They might work similar to this, but I haven't played with them. So, but I can bend this up basically, right? One way or the other. And when you try to do this, try to rotate this on X so that it would do accordingly. Set up the modifier on. Anyways, the whole idea is we want to bend it back up. This old legacy simple form, if it stops at 360, but you can type in a higher value. All right. And in our case, it was a negative higher value, negative sign. You see they're overlapping now. So we can click and drag them back and hold shift. If we ever need to do this, we can. That's the main thing. Get them really close to each other. And the same process takes effect here. We add a weld. You want to crank up that value a little bit until those all weld together. Okay. You can see the little edges. They should pop together. In our case, they might be slightly off from our weld previously, or like that spacing we had with that array would probably do that. So you want to get them very close together anyways. There'll be a slight discrepancy, that's all I'm saying. And you can see why having that more appropriate like would also work very well. Right? But it's welded together now, which is good. I'm going to duplicate it, right click, convert to a mesh, 50 to duplicate, right? We can go in here and we should be able to do the same thing where we select all by trait, interior faces, X, delete, that's gone. We can go to sculpt mode. We should still have a face set, so we can do another relax if need. Okay. And so now we can subdivide this. We won't have any seams. It will actually fold back together the way it should. You're going to do something similar to this to do tire tread more. A lot easier to work with things flat sometimes and roll them up, basically. And the hexagonal patterns are certainly one of those because you might be wanting to create like little modular walls or something in a video game that have this kind of setup. And yeah, they can be a runaway topic. I mean, they really are simple at first, and then they can just go crazy, right? So that's just that example. We're going to move on from that one. Also do like booleans into if I wanted to, but here's the thing. The other type of video you're going to see is people show you to model or start creating this pattern by just might do something like Shift D and duplicate. Might use snapping, vertex snap. Now here in Blender, vertex snapping on the object level at least does this number. It used to be a problem everybody wanted fixed basically, but basically they fixed it. So it's G now. You hit B, and you can actually select the vertex and snap one object to the other. You could do this like this still, it's fun. The way I've always done this is I would be in edit mode. When you're in edit mode, vertex snapping actually works correctly. So if I Shift D and duplicate, if I go and duplicate it out to that side, it's going to use the closest vertex. I can hit G now. Boom. So move it out, go near the vertex you want. Snap very fast and do this. Okay. This is going to be where things can get a little bit more complicated, right? Because when we do this, I actually need one more or four more. Need them in this corner as well. I can finish out the pattern. You want to model the pattern first for the most part, and then worry about cleaning it up and making it fit in that square the best you can. So AM merged by distance. Easier to model these when they're n-gons as well, generally speaking. So if we work with this like this, if I do an extrusion, this isn't actually, let's just move it up, G and Z. We'll come back to that. Let's say I inset all these. I press I to inset, and then I again to do individuals. Do this. Okay. Can't do loop cuts, so we have to use a knife tool and press K and hold shift, and I'll get center edge cuts. This is where things kind of go hayward a little bit. I go all the way across this bottom one. hold shift, click, and then hold shift and then right click to get out, space bar. Those should be flat left to right, okay? That's the main thing. These ones here, eventually we're gonna have to work this way. But see, it's easier to model them without that in the way. You know what I'm saying? So I'm gonna use a cursor selector with C. Go ahead and inset, and now you can see inset, you gotta hit Control, inset. Actually, let's scale these, but let's do them on individual. I can just scale them like this. Now I can inset, hold control, pull them in. Yeah, yeah, something like that for now. So you wanna model your whole pattern out first, that's the main thing. And if anything becomes misaligned, use just vertex snapping and just like G, Y, or X. Okay. And join these things later on. Now, you keep working with this. So like select here, Shift G. This Shift G menu has all kinds of great stuff on it. It's like co-planner for example. Boom. Everything that's like flat on that plane level. That's what it's doing. So if we take this, now we can inset this, right? And this is where things get a little bit tricky, maybe, because you can see what's going on here. Like I can inset it, but if we're not careful, we can create, modeling errors and stuff like that. But we're trying to create that pattern that goes all the way out to here. Okay. That's why we needed these, possibly needed these extra pieces, corners. Okay. But we got that, so we can inset, we can hold control, and we can try insetting some more. No, we get errors. So it's these little things that start to add up over time. So for this one, I might just root it for now. A lot of times you could do things like boundary selects, like select loop, boundary loops. You might get away with chamfers and bevels, stuff on just a, so things like that could possibly take place. And then you'd have to repair this little area, which is a lot easier to deal with than some of the other things. So for our example, though, I'm just going to keep that a little bit bigger and set and hold control, bring it up. A slight taper to it. Something like that. Okay. So we know that we have to create this setup here, right? So we're going to turn it into the pattern now. You can join these with J, or you can just knife cut them. Up to you. We got to do all these ones. Okay. Select by face is sometimes easier. Select by vertex might be needed as well. Cutting out the pattern, guys. That's all I'm doing. Okay. You start to see how that makes more sense like that. X, delete faces. This should be good. The only thing is it's not in a square. So you might want to keep this one actually. You might want to use that. Create a plane. Take this and shift exit out real quick. I'm gonna turn that off just for a second. I'm gonna go into edit mode. We're gonna scale. Well, actually, we could do this in object mode too, but we're gonna scale using the 3D cursor. As you can see, I can just press S, scale this way. This there's an origin point on this. Oh, the origin's okay. If the origin point was somewhere else, you would use 3D cursor. Right now, we could probably use the origin. Right? So we scale on Y, SY, hold Shift, SX, hold Shift. Same kind of idea. We just line things up real quick, right? Our little reference. And this should work out pretty well. Okay. Now, this top edge needs to be flat. SY0. Okay. Whoops. Not the 3D cursor. To me. SY0. Same here on the bottom. SY0. On the right side, SX0. Left side, SX. Make sure they go to the grid. In our case, we want them on the grid. Turn snapping on for this if you want. Now, you don't have to use snappiness. The way I've done this, it's on a default plane, so it's 2 meters by 2 meters. That means at 0 here, we'd have 1 meter this way, 1 meter that way. So this side would be, we moved it on X, it should be 1 meter, right? But that's not right. It's using local. You have to apply scale possibly. Control A, apply scale. Try it again, see if that makes more. Now on X, 1, right? Over here, -1. That'd be perfect alignment. But the Y would be the same thing, -1 and 1. So if your scale's not 1'd out like that, right? That's a little bit of an issue. You would have to, in object mode, you'll see it. You'll either have to apply scale. This happens because you're scaling in object mode. What happens? But or you're messing with the pivot point, control period, move the pivot point around or the origin point. And you can also scale it, rotate it. So see when you scale it, changes it. Control period, turn that off. Now, let's say you didn't want to lose that scale, so it wasn't working out quite correct anyways. Like the scale's fine, like you want to preserve it for some reason. You use global instead. It's going to go off the origin point of the center of the world. As long as you're in the center, it should work out fine. Grid snapping, which we didn't even end up using. Usually when you have these selected, you can hit GY and snap instead of doing the entering the values. Grid. Grid. Cool. That's the pattern. That's all we were trying to do. Whenever you make a tile like this, you're modeling them. You're almost always going to model the pattern first and then try to figure out how to fit it into that square. It's usually the way it goes. So starting with the array is fine, but you'll start to work into this kind of mindset where you're having to cut it up later on, work it out, et cetera, et cetera. Now, here's the thing. Get rid of that back there real quick. This will array just fine with relative. Won't be a big deal. You'll do the 2 arrays. That's kind of the interesting. You're gonna find out that a lot of times you can run arrays over and over and over again. But you notice something here? We got something kind of going wrong. I didn't cut this one here in the middle. Oops. Loop cut it for now. If we need more resolution, it could be useful to add it manually. Okay. Remember how we subdivided it earlier where we had one here, right? Well, we might still need one here, but we still need 3 in here maybe. Okay. Not a guarantee. Like you don't have to add. You do 2 or 1 even. But then this isn't like a good corner anymore because of that. So it's a little bit finicky working with hexagons. But that's the idea of it anyway. Something along these lines. You just want to pay particular attention to all these little nuanced problems and just make sure you're doing the right thing. So, like, for example, if we try going around and beveling certain edges now, some of them will work fine. Other ones will actually start to bevel really bad. Maybe not in this particular case, but you do have to be aware of those kinds of things. It happens. Um, some of them you'll be able to get away with beveling, some of them you won't. And you'll have to get the hang of it. But basically, you got this far. You pull this off here and feel a little bit confident while doing it. You can make pretty much any pattern. You're learning this, right? You'll start learning all the different ways to deform them and do all that other fun stuff too. Bevel, mouse wheel up once and profile up 1. This one would be useful because this is not very dense down here. Some of these other ones too might not be too bad. Surprisingly, a lot of these would work mostly with a loop cut. If we do one over here, we're gonna have to do one over there. How it works. So gotta be they gotta be perfectly matched. So model it first, then turn it into the shape, usually what you want to do. But if you ever, get in here, you like, oh, you know what? I really screwed up. I didn't do it quite right. Could find a way of working issues out. Usually a way to work some kind of issue. Like, for example, if I wanted to bevel all these, mostly works, except it doesn't work over here. Who knew, right? That's not going to be something we can do. Could we do like a Shift G coplanar, then do an inset maybe and hit B? We can do that one. So let me go back over that. Select one face, Shift G, select coplanar. You're going to do an inset and then hit B. Okay. You might want to edge rail it. You might not. I'm going to leave it on. It's just going to give us an extra edge up here. So it'll be a little bit sharper. So when it subdivides, it'll look a little bit nicer. Let's use this. Need a weld right there. Okay. That's it. So that's creating a right click shaded smooth. Creating a hexagonal pattern is how you might end up dealing with it. Remember when you're subdividing, you don't even need to necessarily crank up the viewport at all. But if you want to do one, in the render, usually you turn this higher because this is not going to render that clear. That material preview, maybe give it material, metal. You'll see you're doing some kind of like close up render of this thing for whatever reason. You can obviously see a little bit of the faceting in it. So you would want to be using maybe not even two, maybe like three. Right? In this particular case, if it's a very big object, just for render's sake, you might do it like adaptive subdivision or something. But if you're doing like high to low bakes, you're gonna make it look however detailed it needs to look to get a good bake, basically. And if it's too high polygon for the bake at the when you're done with it, basically, convert it to a mesh, something like this, maybe decimate it. Okay. When you decimate, it's actually better to turn it off, do it destructively, where you do like turn it off and you type in like something like 0.4 maybe. Then you can apply it and it'll run the decimate once as instead of recalculating it every time you adjust the number, you get something like that. So this is what you end up baking. If it's flat, it decimates really good. Okay. You do want to avoid some things like don't let it get too crazy at least because then yeah, if it gets too crazy, it does show up in normal. A little bit cleaner perhaps. Still a little bit crazy. As long as it's shading mostly correct, you'll be okay, but be careful with it anyway. So, but there you go. So this doesn't have to be whatever this was, like a million. Yeah. It could be much lower. Uh, 800,000 now compared to 1.6 million. That's pretty good. Not too bad anyways. Ultimately, I think you guys will be pretty good at this now, right? After kind of watching this video, you should be able to create these things no problem. Start working them out, What? I didn't finish it, I guess. Actually, let's Control Z back then because I did a lot more work. I use that for the thumbnail of the video. So look at it. All right. Subdivide it a little bit while we're at it. Why not? Okay. So hope you enjoyed the video. Check you out in the next one.